Ethnoscience is the study of how different cultures perceive, categorize, and organize knowledge about the world, especially about nature, according to their own linguistic and conceptual systems. It combines anthropology and linguistics to understand how people in a particular society make sense of plants, animals, illnesses, colors, time, space, and other parts of their environment. Cultural knowledge systems. Ethnoscience looks at the folk or traditional ways of knowing, how a community classifies and names things without relying on Western scientific categories. Linguistic approach. Researchers analyze language, vocabulary, grammar, classification terms to reveal the underlying conceptual structures of a culture. Domains of study. Ethnobotany. Local classification of plants, e.g., medicinal herbs. Ethnozoology. Local classification of animals. Ethnomedicine. Indigenous concepts of health and disease. Ethnoastronomy, ethnoecology, etc. Example, in some indigenous Amazonian languages, there might be dozens of words for what Western science calls fish, but these words reflect distinctions, habitat, taste, behavior that are culturally important rather than purely biological. Summary. Ethnoscience does not try to judge whether traditional knowledge is right or wrong by Western standards. Instead, it aims to describe the internal logic of each cultural knowledge system and compare it with other systems, including modern science, to see how humans everywhere construct reality. Would you like an example of how ethnoscience has influenced modern scientific research, like in medicine or It could be, depending on what is meant by African science. If African science means traditional or indigenous African knowledge systems, yes, this is exactly the kind of subject ethnoscience examines. For example, herbal medicine, agricultural practices, iron smelting techniques, cosmologies, or classification of plants and animals used by particular African communities. Ethnoscientists would study how these systems categorize the world, how knowledge is transmitted, and how language encodes these ideas. If African science means modern scientific research done in Africa, no, that falls under the global practice of science, physics, chemistry, etc. Ethnoscience is not about who does the science. It's about local, culturally embedded systems of knowledge, not laboratories using the standard international scientific method. Cash. Summary. Traditional folk knowledge in African cultures, ethnoscience topic. Contemporary academic science by African researchers, not ethnoscience. That's just science in Africa. Would you like examples of specific African ethnoscientific practices, such as medicinal plant classifications